Barack Obama was the deporter in chief. He didn't advertise it, but he wasn't having it. He didn't allow folks to come en masse into our country. Nobody else allows it but us. Nobody. You can't go into Mexico like that. You can't go anywhere in this world with those kind of open borders that Joe Biden okayed. Barack Obama didn't do it. And the reason why Trump had a hard time was because Barack Obama was the deporter in chief, they said. Had he not done it, I'm sorry, then Trump could have lived up to his campaign promises. But you know why Trump couldn't do that when he was in office first go round? Because he would have mirrored Barack Obama.
Well, what a weekend it has been. The United States Army celebrated 250 years with an incredible parade. Donald Trump is still president because Americans mobilized across the nation to make sure that no king took over from Donald Trump. Mission accomplished. Thanks, guys. You did a great job. But you still have this delusion taking place that in places like LA and in other Democrat strongholds where the protesters are just going wild in the streets over ICE deportations. In other words, these people are being deported without due process. What are we doing? Remember, Democrats cheered when the J6 protesters were held in isolation for up to 18 months without a trial, and they weren't allowed to leave. They weren't allowed to go home. They were in undisclosed locations. These are the same Democrats now demanding due process for illegal aliens. That ought to tell you all that you need to know.
Let's get ready to rumble! You can't handle the truth. Somebody on top of the line!
Hi, I'm Pastor Marty, and this is the Afternoon Drive. Make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, and once you are, smack the bell, click the word all. That'll give you notification of my rants, my ravings, my undeniably flawless reasonings. Please like and share this video. It's the only way that we get the word out that we're here. Thank you so much for watching and being a part of the Afternoon Drive. By now, you have all seen the endless video footage of obviously what happened in Los Angeles, and it certainly was anything but a mostly peaceful protest, but there were protests which broke out across the nation. The well-funded, organized No Kings, and most of that was attended by geriatrics and pink-headed people who were talking about how scared they are to live in the United States. We get scared to be around people like you. Kids out there beating on Trump piñatas. And I love how these reporters try to spin it that even when violence breaks out at night, they say things like this: this protest remained peaceful during the day, but then at nightfall, they had confrontation with police officials. Gee, you mean after exposing themselves to 6, 7, 12 hours of one speech after another speech talking about what we need to do to Trump, and Trump is a fascist, and Trump is this, and we need to get him, and now you got Antifa posting the names and addresses of those who work in the Department of Homeland Security, and we have a maniac who shot and killed one state legislator in the state of Minnesota, gravely wounded another one, and it looks like that person's going to have a recovery, and we find out that the shooter actually worked for Tim Walz, and had a hit list to take out Democrats that either were at points giving into the Trump agenda or not fighting Trump enough. Because after all, remember, it wasn't too long ago Tim Walz gave the rally cry, we got to fight harder, we got to be impolite. The only way you deal with a bully like Donald Trump is to fight back. All this over-the-top rhetoric. And where is the violence coming from? The left. The left. The military presence in Los Angeles did not do what the left was secretly salivating for. See, they think they scored a victory. They hope they had scored a victory when Donald Trump federalized the National Guard and brought them in. And then when he brought in the Marines, they thought, we got them now, because what they were hoping for was a Tiananmen Square type of confrontation. And that didn't happen. Trump is using them to secure federal buildings. Now, I talked to someone recently who said just really doesn't feel the Marines ought to be there because Marines kill. That's their job. That's what they're trained to do. And I certainly understand that and respect that. I'm assuming the Marines were deployed after the National Guard because Trump was worried that one of these left-loon judges would try to take his authority away over the National Guard. And, oh, wait, they tried that. And then the Ninth Circuit Court stepped in and said, no. Trump does not have to give control back to Gavin Newsom. He is the commander-in-chief, and he can, under the Insurrection Act, he can marshal the militia, if you will, the National Guard of California. And of course, that'll be appealed and it'll go back and forth, and ultimately it'll be before the Supreme Court. But Donald Trump wanted to make sure that those federal locations were secure, so the Marines were there as the backup plan. And again, none of these so-called peaceful protesters have a thing to worry about unless they decide to throw down with the military. And I warn you, the Marines standing there are not holding tear gas canisters, they're holding machine guns. But the outrage that's coming from people over these deportations and there's no due process, I would have to remind you that there are a few facts that you need to consider. You know, during Donald Trump's first term, he was accused of putting families in cages in these detention centers. Now we found out that all the photos of families in cages in those detention centers were not actually taken during the Trump administration. They were taken during the Obama administration. Bump, ba-dum, bump. And here's an interesting fact. In 1996, in fact, September the 30th, 1996, Bill Clinton signed into law the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act, which allowed for deportation without judicial hearing through a process called expedited removal. I was having a conversation with someone yesterday, and as I stated in that conversation, Donald Trump isn't inventing this process of how ICE goes in, gathers people up, and then deports. This happened under Bill Clinton. This happened under George Bush. And this really happened under Barack Obama. If you take the numbers of people that have been deported since Donald Trump has been in office, and you multiply that out over the course of this year, when you factor the average, over then 4 years of Donald Trump being president, that would mean that roughly about 1.2, 1.3 million people would be deported, based on the current level of the numbers. Barack Obama deported almost 4 million people.
If you're a criminal, you'll be deported. If you plan to enter the U.S. illegally, your chances of getting caught and sent back just went up. The actions I'm taking are not only lawful, they're the kinds of actions taken by every single Republican president and every single Democratic president for the past half century.
Yeah, and they didn't all get due process. You know why? Because of the Illegal Immigration Reform Immigrant Responsibility Act signed into law in 1996 by Bill Clinton. They don't have to. And you look at so many of these people that Donald Trump has had rounded up. These are people that already have had, if you will, eviction notices. They were already under orders of deportation. We just hadn't gotten around under Joe Biden to enforcing it or getting to it. We have to be a nation of laws and a nation of borders. And when you look at these purple-haired simpletons running around, especially in California, you can't be illegal on stolen land. You can't be illegal on stolen land. You know, I hate to bring up stubborn little things called facts to you libloons, but California is not stolen land. The United States bought it from Mexico in 1840, along with Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona, and I forget what else. Yeah. We bought it. Land is either conquered or it's purchased. When I see, people talking about, we stole Manhattan. No, we bought it. Granted, the natives didn't make a great deal for it, but we bought it. Just like we bought Louisiana from the French. We bought California from Mexico. And if Native Americans want to claim that it was stolen, then they better make that argument to the Mexicans who stole it from them and then turned around and sold it to the United States. I know facts are pesky little things and they get in the way of great narratives, like the only thing happening in Los Angeles right now is just this one protester and she's in the street blowing bubbles. How is that hurting anyone? Oh, for crying out loud. You do know that we have timeline video, and even before Donald Trump sent the National Guard in, these people had hammers and they were busting up cinder blocks and they were throwing them at police, and they were throwing cinder blocks off of overpasses and damaging and destroying police cars, and then using commercial grade fireworks to set them on fire while standing on the hoods waving a foreign flag. That is an act of war. Sheriff Wayne Ivey in Brevard County, Florida, has the viral moment of basically saying, in Florida, you're not going to do that here. You spit on us, referring to the police, you're going to the hospital, then you're going to jail. You throw a rock at us, you draw a weapon on us, we will notify your family where they can pick up your remains. Oh, and he's basically told motorists in the state of Florida, if a protest breaks out and people try to block the street or the intersection, motivate them. That's code for run them over. You know what's not happening in Florida? What you see happening in Los Angeles, what you see happening in Chicago, what you see happening in Seattle, what you're going to see happen in New York. Barack Obama, there were people that were deported who were actually American citizens. Some of that had to be worked out and brought back. I understand that there is a genuine fear and there's a nuance to this of understanding that there are those that are fearful that they've been here 20 years and now they're going to be deported. But there was a legal way to do this, and they have failed to take advantage of it. And I understand that even Hispanic people who are citizens of this country live in fear that because they might be in the wrong place at the wrong time, they could be rounded up in a big dragnet. Got it. That happens all the time, and not just with deportation. If you or I are in a place where a major crime breaks out and maybe there's a shootout with police and the police finally get there, even if you're just an innocent bystander, we all have to do the same thing when the police get there. And handcuffs are going to be put on everyone, and everyone's going to be detained until proper identification can be established. When people say, but these detention centers we're sending these people to, well, are you saying these are inhumane concentration camps? Are we trying to elevate this to what happened in Nazi Germany? Come on. Come on. Doesn't change the fact Obama deported 3 times as many people as Donald Trump will. There was no protesting in the streets because the media didn't shine a spotlight on it. The media didn't talk about it. The only reason this is a problem is the media wants the narrative, and they're ginning people up along with the Democrats. They are the purveyors of violence, not the right.